Donald Trump just appointed Heather Honey, an election denier who tried to overturn the 2020 election in charge of overseeing U.S. elections. Can you promise us we're not going to have an Al Gore 2000 on the David Jolly race? Are you concerned about the...
I'm very concerned, and I'm concerned that DOJ is going to investigate leading candidates, possibly in this race as well, myself.
So much to talk to you about, Rep. First of all, I'm out here in California. You see what Gavin Newsom is doing, and his press office just said Florida's homicide rate is 130% higher than California's, but you'd never know that by watching Fox News. I mean, the fact is, Florida's a disaster under Ron DeSantis. He's more concerned about getting, rainbow crosswalks erased from the last gun massacre than doing anything about guns or anything else, right?
Yeah. Stephanie, this is heartbreaking. Some issues are kind of bigger than politics. Saving our children from being murdered in schools should be one of those. Preventing worshipers in their church or synagogue from getting murdered should be bigger than politics. Shootings at Walmarts, frankly, shootings in neighborhoods. And look, it's an area of my political journey that I made pretty quickly once I started serving and realizing the opportunity we had to change people's lives, to provide for safe communities, to save lives. I was in office during the Pulse nightclub shooting, and then Parkland happened a couple years after that. We need in Florida dramatic gun safety legislation, but we need it across the country as well. Look, I'm running in a state that is right now a red state. I think we're going to flip it blue, but I need to have conversations with gun owners saying, I understand responsible gun owners are not the problem, but the access to guns, the unfettered access without the checking of whether or not someone can responsibly own and store and use that firearm, the access point is what ultimately drives gun violence. I'm going to give you a great example. We haven't had a shooting on an airplane in a really long time, Stephanie. And you know why? Because we decided to actually prohibit guns on airplanes and have a point of enforcement. Yeah. And guess what? When you prohibit the use of guns in certain environments and you enforce it, you eliminate gun violence. I think what angers me the absolute most is that the answer from the gun lobby and most elected Republicans is that losing kids is just a casualty of their Second Amendment rights. And that's just a garbage argument, and it is an immoral argument that we've got to shut down.
David, we just had my friend Fred Gutenberg on yesterday, and who said he's been taking a step back because I said I'm almost embarrassed to ask every time this happens. I'm sure his phone goes off, and we do our our sad little American pageant again, where everybody from the past shootings has to drag up all their grief and put it on display, and then we have the same discussions all over again. I mean, this saved one tweet for you. Every country on planet Earth has mentally ill people. Only in America do we charge them for health care and give them unfettered access to guns. Period. I mean, and the vast majority of people agree with us on all these issues: automatic weapons, mentally ill with access to guns, and we still haven't been able to get it done, right?
Yeah, look, that's exactly right. Fred is a good friend, and I won't speak for him, but he's provided great counsel to me as well as support in our campaign for Florida governor, because some issues are just so critical that, even Fred knows it is worth his time if we can save lives together. I think, to repeat a little bit what I said, in my 10 plus years of actually serving and being in politics actively, the heartbreaking and angering part is the Republican answer is truly to do nothing, to accept the casualties as part of their rights. And there are a lot of arguments you can break down that they give us that are garbage. One, they say it's a fundamental right. Well, that's right. It is a fundamental right. I think the Second Amendment provides a fundamental right, but a fundamental right is not an absolute right. It's not for speech or press or assembly, and it shouldn't be for the Second Amendment. Look, one of the great examples, the false notion that we have background checks, we don't. We really have criminal conviction checks. And here's what that means. If a domestic abuser, let's just use a husband and wife, if a husband is beating his wife and the police get called, but there's no charges and no criminal conviction, that doesn't go in a background check. And so the second time they come to the house, still no charge. The third time, still no charge. The fourth time, that guy goes and buys a gun on demand at the local Walmart, returns home and kills his wife. Look, as Florida governor, I'm not trying to take a firearm out of a responsible gun owner that knows how to store it, keep it, and use it responsibly. Yeah. I'm trying to keep it out of the hands of a wife-beating murderer. Yeah. And what too many Republicans are saying is, well, it's okay if that wife-beating murderer gets his gun and kills his spouse, as long as I get to hold my gun too. Yeah. I just think we've got to get way past this. We've got to shatter the paradigms around this. Talk to the gun community and say, we're not trying to take the guns from responsible gun owners, but if we pass gun violence prevention legislation in America, we're going to save their kids. Just like we're going to save our kids.
Yep.
And that should be a universal truth.
Rep, you mentioned something. You said Florida's a red state right now. Can I just say I have an endless capacity to be bitter about things. And I can remember back when Al Gore actually won Florida, if every study showed if they had finished the counting. Right. So it's not always been a red state. I keep talking about Texas and this redistricting. It's not a red state. It's a voter suppression state. There's 1.5 million more registered Democrats in Texas than Republicans. So talk a little bit about Florida, the state of the race and all that, because I refuse to believe Florida's just red, period.
Yeah, listen, Stephanie, I've probably been involved in about 30 campaigns. I've only been a candidate in 4. Very rarely do I put my analyst hat on. I try to remain a candidate. But here's one of the reasons I'm in this race, because Democrats can win statewide in 26 in the state of Florida. Yeah. I promise you that's the case. And here's why. We're in the midst of a national change environment. We saw a 21-point swing just this week in an Iowa Senate race. In Florida's congressional special elections this year, we've seen 16-point swings in deep red areas. Democrats are overperforming in Wisconsin and every other jurisdiction that we have. And so voters are pissed off. Yeah. Pissed off. They are screaming. The reason Mandami won in New York is because voters were pissed off and he was listening to them. Yeah. And so the answers in Florida are very different than Mandami's. My answers are different than Mandami's. We certainly disagree on some things. But in Florida, we've got an affordability crisis that Republicans have created. Republicans have abandoned public education. Families don't know where to go to educate their kids. We're seeing a war on communities, not a war on crime, right? Our governor's fighting the immigrant community. He's not fighting crime. And these culture wars have marginalized and angered people and made them feel disrespected and not welcome in the state of Florida. And so the ability in the midst of a change environment to say, look, we're just going to fight for your personal economy, better insurance, better taxes. We're going to fight for better schools, and we're going to fight crime, but not communities. We're going to put an end to the culture war where everyone's welcome. That allows us to build a campaign bigger than just the Democratic Party. Because we need independents and we need Republicans to be a part of this.
Speaking of which, speaking of Mandami, at least he's not as big a socialist as Donald Trump, who wants to buy 10% of Intel, right? I mean, it's, your party doesn't stand for anything it used to stand for.
I used to call them big government conservatives, but now they're socialists. Now they're just outright socialists. And look, I sit in groups. I sat with a group of young progressives last night, and I really mean this. I eschew a lot of the labels. I'm in a post-ideological point in my life. I don't care if the answers are left, right, or middle. I just want big solutions to big problems. It's true as well as how we define the economy. Look, I think the government has to step in where private markets fail. It's true in insurance. It's true in healthcare. It's true in transportation and education, all these other things. Republicans will call me a socialist for that. I don't care what you call me. I just call it cheaper insurance and better education.
Right.
But on the left, we put these tests on as well, right? Oh, will you be socialist on this? Look, I still think more efficient government is always better. You might accuse me of being right of center on that. I don't really care. We just need big answers to big problems.
All the things that your party used to fearmonger about with Obama are actually happening now. Right?
That's right. That's exactly
right.
This
is the tyranny that they said that they needed their guns for, right? Is what Donald Trump is doing. I mean, it's insanity.
Can I just add, on this notion, by the way, this talking point on the right, we need our guns for the day the government comes for us.
Right.
Ask David Koresh how that worked out.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. You really think that you need all of these weapons? You need these assault weapons because the government's coming for you one day and somehow you're going to beat them back? I just think it's a garbage argument.
I've been saving this. I'm sure you saw this. Trey Gowdy, who is still a Republican as far as I know. He's a Fox News guy. I don't know if you saw MAGA World explodes over Fox News host WTF gun comment. He just said something normal, sensible, that the vast majority of Americans agree with. But this is what you have to either leave your party, as you know, or I guess get thrown out to say anything like sane. He said our system is reactive. Something bad happens, we react to it. And what people are crying for now is how can we prevent this? How can we stop it? The only way to stop it is to identify the shooter ahead of time, keep weapons out of their hands. We're going to have a conversation of freedom versus protecting children. How many school shootings does it take? We're going to have a conversation about keeping firearms out of. It's always a young white male, most always. Gowdy, who received money from the NRA, suggested the conversation had to be had about whether Americans want freedom versus protecting children. Critics on the right called Gowdy's comments shameful, claimed he was not conservative, said they despised him. You know the drill, right?
Yeah, it's ugly and it's heartbreaking. The issue is access to guns. Okay, I will give him the argument and say it's not guns. I think it is, but okay, if you want to say it's not guns, that's fine. It is the access to guns in the United States, the unfettered, unchecked access to guns. And to Gowdy's point, look, we need universal and background checks to actually, universal and comprehensive background checks to make sure it's effective. Universal means every transaction. I'm sorry, that means a grandfather giving a family gun to a grandchild. We need to know if that grandchild is capable of owning that firearm. There shouldn't be an exception. I don't care if you buy it at a Walmart or you buy it at a gun show. It should be checked. So it has to be universal. But to Gowdy's point, it's got to be comprehensive. And this gets into some tricky areas, right? Yeah. You don't want to deter someone from seeking mental health treatment if they're afraid that maybe their rights might be limited. But I'm sorry, we have to. We have to expand. If you're asking to buy a weapon that can kill somebody and take somebody's life, it is a small price for society to suggest that there should be a background check, maybe even a waiting period, whatever it might be. Nothing actually prohibits that responsible gun owner from ultimately owning a firearm. Nobody's suggesting that.
Rep, let me get
we've got to do more at the access point.
Yeah, let me get to a couple other, the FEMA cuts, a couple other important, I mean, there's a full-on rebellion going on at CDC, at FEMA, you know, responsible people talking about the cuts and the life or death, you know, decisions being made. And obviously, you know, in Florida with hurricane season starting, these cuts to FEMA are going to be catastrophic, aren't they?
Yeah, and you know where the very insidious place that this started? Donald Trump can't handle missing a news cycle.
Yes.
And so, and we also know the way he elevates himself is he has to have an enemy. And so if the news cycle is a natural disaster, the enemy has to be FEMA or the governor of the state or the responders who aren't doing what Donald Trump thinks they should be doing because he knows best. And so this all started during storm season last year. Let me tell you, the state government is not capable of providing what FEMA does in any state. Like state governments are really good. Florida is the Florida National Guard at disaster readiness, if you will. But the actual administration of hotel vouchers for 6 months, of food vouchers and food assistance, of transportation assistance, you're telling me the deep red small government state of Florida and wants to stand up its own FEMA department? And to the point that the governor of North Carolina said, why should states set up a full-time enterprise when we may go a year or two without storms? The whole point of FEMA is that its ability to respond nationally wherever the storms are. Donald Trump's administration is making us less safe. It's true in healthcare, it's true in natural disasters, and it's true in foreign policy.
Alligator Alcatraz, what is the state of that? Because a judge ordered it to be shut down. I mean, once again, something Trump does, I'm like illegal, unconstitutional, immoral. It's usually all three. What is the state?
So this is a Ron DeSantis matter, and I anticipate he will push back just for the glory of it in conservative circles. It should be shut down. Here's what I'll tell you. I can actually, as governor of the state of Florida, shut it down on day one because the way this happened was an executive order, an emergency order of our governor to seize the land from Miami-Dade County and ultimately open up the facility. If we rescind that emergency order by Ron DeSantis, Alligator Alcatraz is done. Now, look, if we need detention capacity in the state of Florida, we'll build it. But I think the cruelty of this, we don't celebrate detention facilities. We don't have step and repeats and Hollywood openings like they've done. And then, by the way, who are we putting there? These aren't hardened criminals. These are 30 people behind a chain link fence. Yeah. Look, I want to have a conversation nationally about this in this race. Republican leaders are fighting communities, not fighting crime. I'll fight crime as governor. Yeah. If you were born here, immigrated here from overseas or New York or Ohio, you break the law. If you're a dirty politician, you break the law, we'll hold you accountable. But we're going to lift up our immigrant community.
Yeah. We're running so long, but I have to ask you. Donald Trump just appointed Heather Honey, an election denier who tried to overturn the 2020 election in charge of overseeing U.S. elections. Can you promise us we're not going to have an Al Gore 2000 on the David Jolly race? Are you concerned about the...
I'm very concerned, and I'm concerned that DOJ is going to investigate leading candidates, possibly in this race as well, myself. We need an overwhelming win Donald Trump is attacking democracy. Ron DeSantis is attacking democracy. Where they can't win, they cheat. That's what we're watching.
Do it, Florida. Do it. Don't make me come over there. Listen, giving us so many gifts. Val Demings, David Jolly, Fred Gutenberg. All right, David, come back anytime. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Steph.
All right,
Thank
good
you.
luck. Very
Appreciate
good.
Well, CPAP machines are the worst, right? Who can sleep at night with that mask and hose strapped to your face? But without it, breathing is disrupted, and if you have a higher risk of dementia, stroke, heart disease, or premature death, the bottom line is if you snore now, you are at heightened risk of requiring a CPAP machine later. So now is the time to stop snoring. One of the smartest, fastest, easiest ways to stop snoring is Zipa. Zipa is the comfortable doctor-designed mouthpiece that can stop snoring as fast as the first night. Don't be fooled by imitators. Zipa was proven in a 600-patient clinical trial, and with over 500,000 units sold, Zipa is the stop snoring device that we trust. No more being nudged awake for snoring. No more sleeping in separate rooms. No more feeling tired and foggy all day due to lack of sleep. Look, this may be your last best chance to solve your snoring problem now, or face having to wear that CPAP mask later. Zipa, that's Happy Z spelled backward. I want you to try it with my special discount. Get 20% off and free shipping if you visit ZYPPAH.com. Use that promo code SNORE. Again, the promo code is SNORE at Zipa.com.